Living in Olympia, Washington. You're curious about the area and that's why you're here. So let's chat about living in Olympia, Washington, the cost of living in Olympia, Washington, and what to do if you're interested in moving to Olympia, Washington. Olympia is the capital of Washington State and it's located in the southern end of Puget Sound. It's a great place to live with a small town feel and plenty of outdoor activities. In this video, I'll share my thoughts on what it's like to live in Olympia, so let's get started. As I mentioned, Olympia is located in the southern end of the Puget Sound. It is a great location as it's sort of right in the middle of both Seattle and Portland, so you have access to two large metros along with both of their airports. Demographics. Olympia, Washington is the 15th best city to live in the USA, according to livability.com. There are 54,579 residents in Olympia. When discussing income levels, the average household income is $85,315, and a median household income is $67,975. Major industries here include government, healthcare, agriculture, tourism, and retail. With Evergreen State College and South Puget Sound Community College, you have both a 2-year community college and a 4-year liberal arts college option for higher education. Climate. One of the first things I noticed about Olympia was the climate. It has a mild, temperate climate with cool, damp winters and warm, dry summers. Now, I was surprised a bit when we moved here. Now, obviously, it does fluctuate from year to year, but I will say that it didn't rain as much as I thought it would. Now, don't get me wrong, there's definitely rain. Often it's drizzle, wet air rather than this like constant downpour. But either way, it's not too cold, so it's a great place to live if you're not a fan of extreme weather. Now, while I do say it's fairly mild, it's across the board, it's not extreme weather. It occasionally does get hot in the summer above the 90s, and because the climate here is mostly mild, a lot of the homes are not prepared for the peaks of summer and don't have air conditioning. So if this is a concern to you, you definitely want to make sure that you are looking for housing that has an air conditioner. And some ask, does it snow in Olympia, Washington? Yes, my friend, it does. Yes, it does. Some winters a lot and some winters a little, but it definitely does snow. It doesn't usually stick around unless there's like some big storms. Often it will snow and either it won't stick at all to the ground or it will stick to the ground for like a day or two. However, we do also get large storms. So sometimes there are more extreme snow situations, but it still doesn't usually last very long for long periods like it does in a lot of other areas. If you are severely affected and sensitive to the weather and sometimes the lack of sun, the weather is definitely something that you really do want to consider. I will say that when we first moved here, this was definitely something that we were worried about, the lack of sun. It doesn't really bother me. I love the rain. I could take more rain. I just love it so much. And while my husband is definitely more sensitive to the lack of sun than I am, we're happy to report that he really didn't have a problem with it. He says it goes with the seasonality of the year, and so there's lots of sun in the summer and there's still sun throughout the year. There's also rain. Outdoor activities. Another thing I love about Olympia is all the outdoor activities that are available. There are plenty of parks and lakes to explore, as well as the Nisqually National Wildlife Refuge, which is a great place to see all kinds of wildlife. If you're into hiking and camping, Mount Rainier National Park is just a short drive away, but you really don't have to go far. If you like hiking or nature trails, there are lots of hiking and nature trails around the area. We have Tolmie State Park, Miller-Sylvania State Park, Olympia Tumwater Foundation, Watershed Park, Squaxin Park, which was formerly Priest Point Park, and many more. There's also no shortage of water in the area for water activities. If you like to swim, fish, boat, kayak, there are plenty of options available. Not all the lakes offer camping, so be aware if that's something that you are looking for. Food and drink. The food scene in Olympia is also really great. There are plenty of local restaurants serving up fresh local ingredients, and there's also a thriving coffee and beer scene. So if you're a fan of craft beer, you'll love the local breweries and tap rooms. There are also several wineries in the area if you're more into wine than beer. We have a great farmers market that's actually open year-round. The high season, which is April through October, is open Thursday through Sunday, and then there's the off seasons. The first one is November and December, and during that time they are open Saturdays and Sundays, and then January through March is their other off season and they are only open on Saturdays. There are many amazing vendors that take part in the farmers market, and it's so fun to kind of walk around, grab your, farmers market goods, and then walk along the waterfront down to Percival Landing and have lunch at one of the really good restaurants right along the waterfront. Arts and culture. I also have to mention the arts and culture scene in Olympia. There are plenty of galleries and museums, as well as music and theater performances. The Washington Center for the Performing Arts is a great place to catch a show, and there are also plenty of festivals and events throughout the year, like the Olympia Beer Fest and the Olympia Harbor Days, for example. Cost of living in Olympia, Washington. Let's talk about the cost of living a little bit. I'm going to go into more detail in another video, but let's look at things from a very high level. If you look at the census data, you can see here where most people are moving to Olympia from. And the highest areas are actually nearby counties, Pierce and King, which includes Seattle. You can see that there is a migration coming from several of the larger metro areas as well. But let's take a look at the cost of living difference between Olympia and Seattle. I really like to use this website when doing this comparison. I feel like it gives you some really good information, and I'll leave the link in the description so you can check it out. You can get a lot more detailed information if you do get the premium subscription to the website. But even the free version gives a really good high-level cost comparison. The one thing that's really good about doing the upgraded version is it will allow you to compare different scenarios, like if you are a homeowner versus a renter, if you have childcare or if you do not. So that's something to consider. If you're looking at a bunch of different areas and you're trying to decide between them, you're definitely gonna wanna do the upgrade so you can get better numbers for that comparison. But even the free version gives a very good high-level comparison. So let's assume you have a salary of $90,000 and you're living in Seattle and are thinking about possibly moving to Olympia. The way this website works is that the national average is 100. So anything below 100 means it's cheaper than the national average, and anything above 100 means it's more expensive. The main comparison assumes that you are a homeowner with no childcare costs and taxes are not taken into account. So like I was mentioning before, the upgraded version allows you to customize this further to match your situation. So the highlight is that overall, Olympia is 33.3% cheaper than Seattle, with housing being the biggest factor, as it is for a lot of places. And as you can see, that median home cost is 42.7% less in Olympia than it is in Seattle, and doesn't include property taxes or utilities. You can see that Olympia is cheaper in almost every category, some to a greater degree than others, with utilities being the one exception. And let's look at this comparison to the national average. Overall, Olympia is higher by 11.9% to the national average. And again, the biggest category is housing. Housing is more expensive in Olympia than it is the national average by 37.6%. But there are a number of categories where the expense is less than the national average. So if housing wasn't so much over the national average, the overall number would clearly be closer to the national average. Overall, I love living in Olympia. It's a great place to live if you're looking to have that like small town feel with plenty of outdoor activities, and there's like this great food and drink scene and a thriving arts and culture community. I personally love the weather. It could rain more and I'd be even happier. If you're thinking about moving to the Pacific Northwest, I definitely recommend giving Olympia a closer look. I have a local relocation guide that goes into more detail about the area around Olympia, Washington. If you want a copy of it, click the link in the description below and I'll send it over to you. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.